Hello, everyone. I'm Rebecca Weber. You're listening to AMAC's podcast, Better for America. And back with us today is the host of America First on Salem Radio and AMAC contributing author and writer, Dr. Sebastian Gorka. Dr. Gorka, thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you for having me, Rebecca. It's great to be back.
It's always good to chat with you, sir. And since you were last on, Trump has been indicted 2 more times, once in D.C. for his alleged involvement on January 6th, and again in Georgia over his efforts to essentially address or expose what he thought might have been election fraud in the state of Georgia during the 2020 presidential elections. Now, AMAC members are saying that these indictments reek of political persecution. And earlier this month, you did write an article. AMAC published that article on our website at amac.us. The KGB has arrived in America. And you point out, sir, that the history of the Democrat Party questioning elections is long. For example, Hillary Clinton in 2016, she claimed that the election was stolen from her by the Russians, and we all know the story where that one went. So AMAC members are saying, this doesn't seem right. This certainly smells and looks like political persecution. How did we get here, sir, and what needs to happen? AMAC members are saying, Lady Justice should be blind. Why are they attacking Trump like this?
Well, my gosh, at least 3 big questions there. Why Trump? How did we get here? And what does this mean? What do we do about it? So that article for you, Rebecca, for AMAC, was hard for me to write because for those who aren't familiar with my background, my parents actually lived under fascism as children and then under communism as adults. And my father was an anti-communist patriot in Hungary. He was betrayed by Kim Philby, the double agent in British intelligence. And at the age of 20, he was arrested, imprisoned, and tortured by the secret police. After 6 years in a political prison, he was liberated by the freedom fighters of 1956. And that's how I'm alive today. He escaped literally across a minefield with the 17-year-old daughter of a fellow prisoner who later would become his wife and my mother. So when I say, the KGB has arrived to America, that's tough for me to say because my father, till his dying day, bore the marks, the torture scars on his body from real secret police interrogations. But it has to be said. I mean, it has to be said. When you hear somebody, this is a clip my friend Charlie Kirk posted from his podcast that I reposted on my Twitter feed. And within 24 hours, I had more than 300,000 impressions on this video clip. And it's from Newt Gingrich. And Newt Gingrich is a very sober individual. He's perhaps the greatest political mind we have in America today. And Newt said, remember, Newt wasn't just Speaker of the House. He was representative from the state of Georgia to the House of Representatives. And he said, and of course, Fannie Willis is in Georgia. He said he has been told by a reliable source that when the latest scandal erupted of President Biden having a pseudonymous email account created for him on a government server. So he has this fake named email account that was made for him while he's vice president, that he used to communicate with Ukrainian businessmen about his upcoming meeting with the president of Ukraine. That email is CC'd, is copied to Hunter Biden. Why is the vice president sending pseudonymous emails to Ukraine, CCing his son Hunter Biden? When that news erupted, according to Newt Gingrich, the Department of Justice in D.C. rang the office of Fannie Willis in Fulton County and said, you need to indict President Trump now. And she said, our grand jury doesn't meet on Mondays. They meet on Tuesdays. And this administration said, no. You need to bring them together on Monday, and you need to drop those indictments now. And that's why we had this peculiar, you remember, Rebecca, when in your life have you seen a county prosecutor hold a press conference at close to midnight? Close to midnight? This tells you one thing, and it's why I gave my article the title that it has. We are living in a time in America where the blindfold has been ripped off Lady Justice. and following the ominous motto of the founder of the pre-KGB, Lavrenti Beria, said, "Show me the man, and I will find you the crime." That's why we are where we are today. That's why the president has had 4 indictments, 91 charges that total more than 400 years in prison. Why? Very simply, because they have no other way to defeat him. You look at the polling, it doesn't matter whose poll you choose. President Trump is between 20 and 50 points ahead of his nearest challenger for the GOP nomination. So he's between 20 and 50 points ahead of Ron DeSantis or Vivek Ramaswamy. And not only that, in the latest polls, he is beating Joe Biden, the incumbent, despite all the indictments. And they don't have COVID this time, Rebecca. If you haven't seen 2000 Mules, every one of our viewers and listeners needs to see the amazing movie by Dinesh D'Souza. I mean, full disclosure, I'm one of the people in it giving my opinion of what happened in 2020. But you need to understand that COVID was how they won the last election. I don't want to hear about, voting machines and everything else. Simply mailing out 81 million mail-out ballots
Yeah.
was the reason that they could do what they did in places like Atlanta, Baltimore, Chicago, and Philly. They don't have COVID 2024. God willing, they don't have it. So they need another way to defeat President Trump. And they think putting him in a federal jumpsuit is how they're going to defeat him.
That's right. And people know, I mean, this man, Joe Biden, he stayed in his basement. He doesn't draw crowds. Even today, his popularity, it's just plummeting day after day. And the major legacy news media is doing Americans a great disservice by trying to cover up the Biden crime, story. And there's a big, big story there. Dr. Gorka, so many of your articles, they share this theme, and that theme is the loss of liberty here at home in America. We see big tech is colluding with government agencies, silencing dissent. Certainly, we just spoke about the persecution of a former president. Where is there hope? Is there still time to take America back? Because it seems like with every indictment, Trump is getting stronger. And I don't know if the left is miscalculating what may happen. But I do see Americans are waking up to the truth.
Well, look, here's the great irony of the forces that we are facing. And we can take this completely out of politics. I had a discussion with my son and his best friend last night. And I said, I don't need to talk about, the letter R or the letter D. I'm not interested in, Republicans or Democrats. The dividing line in America today is very simple. Do you love America or do you want to demolish America? And we live in this perverse age where we have, people like Obama and Biden come to power who literally are dismantling the nation. Remember what Obama said. He said, I am preparing for the fundamental transformation of America as I become president. Now, Rebecca, if I told my wife, I'm going to fundamentally change you, I don't think she'd think I loved her, right?
Right,
So
right.
the choice is, do you think America is great? The shining city on a hill that Ronald Reagan spoke about, the greatest nation made by man, founded on individual liberty? Or do you think it's run by, cisgender white male patriarchy? I mean, this is the insanity of where we live today. So it's not political, it's about America. Are there bright things? Look, Anthony Oliver's song, Rich Men North of Richmond, has become the number one on the Billboard Top 100. A guy who wrote a song about what? I've had it with the quote unquote elite destroying the working class that created America. That tells you something. That resonance of that song in just the last 10 days in America tells you that something is stirring, something is happening. And look, we can talk about all kinds of issues, but I look at specifically the transgender issue. I think this is, to use the colloquialism, the red pill of our time. Whether you're a father, a mother, a grandparent, it doesn't matter. But when you hear these stories of not only, this 6'2" man who's fully intact, getting into a female leotard to, swim against women this, Will Thomas christens himself Leah, and then crushes the sports careers of young women. And people go, hang on a second, that's a dude, that's a guy. What's he doing? Or when they hear that Boston's Children's Hospital is doing surgeries to quote unquote transition minors into the opposite sex. I think there's this Damascene moment where the scales fall from the eyes, and we're seeing it at school boards. I mean, my wife ran for local office here in Virginia, and she won. And she said, why did she run? This lady who is, utterly detests politics because she's sane. She announced to me one day, I'm running for the local community center board. And what do you mean you're running? You mean you want to ask my permission, or you want me to ask? No, I've already got the signatures and I'm running. And I said, why? She said, well, because the local library just had a drag queen story hour for children. And
Wow.
that's not happening as long as I live in this county. And God bless her, she was defeated the first time, didn't give up, ran again, and with two other women, just won all three seats in the local election. So, there are signs, but I pity your editors, because I think of the 10 pieces I've already written for you, at least 8 of them finish the same way. And it's on
Mm,
purpose. And it's an exhortation to the reader, to the AMAC member, to say, it's about you, right?
yeah,
It's not about me, with my national platform. It's not about Rebecca or AMAC. It's about you. What are you prepared to do? Because the president's most trenchant point about all of these indictments is that, and he said it time and time again, it's not about me, it's about you. I'm just
that's
in the
right.
way. So I implore everyone listening, everyone watching, just ask yourself one simple question every single day. After you pray to the Lord in the morning, ask yourself, what am I going to do, not just for the glory of God, but what am I going to do to help save the republic? At the end of the
And
day,
we've
before
got
you
to
go to
do that.
sleep, you do an
It's great
examination of
advice.
conscience. That's what Catholics call it. Did I do what I set out to do to glorify my Creator today? Ask yourself that question, pray about it if you didn't. And then also ask yourself a second question. Did I do what I said I do to help save the republic? Because writing a check to the local candidate is not enough anymore. I mean, my
It's not
wife, we went
enough.
on vacation. My poor wife spent every day organizing door knockers, people who would go out in Virginia, knock on doors, and say, "Hey, do you know this election coming up is a really important one? If my wife can do that, anyone can do that. You have to get up out of your chair and run for local. I don't care whether it's the local library board, the county commissioner, the school board, run for local office and get politically engaged. Because really, we hear this every 2 years. This is the most important election. This is it.
Right.
If you look at
This
what the
is it.
Democrats are planning, pack the court, pack the Supreme Court, lower the voting age to 16. Keep dismantling the border, defund the police. If half of these things come to fruition, you can kiss America goodbye. It's really that serious.
It sure is. And you can't, I mean, we can't amplify that message enough. It is so important. It seems that the Biden administration is really breeding a culture of death. I mean, they want taxpayer dollars to fund abortion right here in America and overseas. They again are for these destructive and harmful surgeries on minors, for keeping parents out of the classroom and labeling parents as domestic terrorists. Fentanyl that's coming across the border and claiming the lives of over 100,000 American people. I mean, it really feels like a culture of death, and things are only getting worse. What I found really interesting, and I always look for the silver lining, is we saw 2 media events last week, right? We saw over 12 million viewers tune into Fox News to see the presidential primary, and then Tucker Carlson's interview of Donald J. Trump the same evening. What I found interesting is that his video, Tucker's that is, with Trump, amassed over 260 million views on X, formerly Twitter. They're calling that X. Do you think that this terrifies the legacy press and corporate newsrooms? I mean, do you think that they are shocked by that? That so many
Oh,
people are still getting at the truth?
Indubitably, without a doubt. I mean, you need to know the inside baseball, but
Mhm.
when I ask most people, so how big do you think CNN's audience is? Most people don't believe me, and I know this from when I was in the White House and I had to represent the president on cable news. On a good night, on a really good night, when Tucker was still at Fox, the biggest audience of a cable news show was Fox. It was Tucker, and on a good night, a big breaking news, it was 5 million people. Uh, for CNN, it has now sunk at prime time to less than 500,000 viewers. That's in a
Wow.
nation of more than 330 million. I mean, I've got a, what, 4-year-old radio program. My radio show is listened to by 3.5 million people across America. On social media platforms that I built myself, I didn't have a team until recently. I have 4.2 million followers in aggregate across all the social media platforms. That is literal multiples of CNN. You look at the Washington Post, you look at the New York Times, these entities are plummeting. And then you look at what Elon is doing with X or Twitter, and you look at the fact that 200 million, I mean, that's almost the population of America, watched the video of Tucker's interview with President Trump. So yes, I give cable news about 5 years and it will be moribund, it will be dead. And if we get back in power, if good guys get back in power and stop the FBI and the DHS collaborating with Palo Alto to throttle and censor conservatives on social media, then the future is freedom, and the future is the First Amendment.
And that's some good news right there. It really is incredible. I mean, I think Tucker's only got 9 million followers on X. So people clearly have shared that video, passed it on, it's circulating, people are tuning in, and I think that's fantastic. I have a final question for you before we let you run. I know how busy you are, and we so appreciate having you here. This is always fun. AMAC members, they've been pretty clear that they do feel like America is much less safe today than it's been. And what I find fascinating is the work that you've done in your previous job. It required you to travel the nation and travel to faraway places. You trained our brave military, our intelligence analysts, and police officers. Under Donald J. Trump, we saw ISIS was destroyed in an unbelievable 5 months. Now, fast forward 2 years. Where are we at today under Joe Biden? How bad has it really gotten? Because I know that you're paying close attention to these things on the national security front.
Well, let me posit it as a question, Rebecca. The U.S. Army about 6, 7 years ago created something called the red teaming position. So next to every commander, there is a red team officer, and the red team officer's job is to think like the enemy. So wherever they are, if they're deployed to the Pacific, they have to think like China or North Korea. If they're deployed to Europe, they have to think like Russia. If they're deployed to the Middle East, they have to try and think like a global jihadi organization like ISIS. And I put it to you, or all of the listeners and viewers, if you're a bad guy, if you're Kim in North Korea, if you're Putin in the Kremlin, if you're the mullahs in Iran, if you're Xi Jinping or General Lee in Beijing, what do you think of America right now? Are you afraid of America? Or do you invade your neighbor? Do you do what Russia and China have done for the first time, is to have joint patrols off the coast of Alaska with military vessels? What does that tell you? Does anybody, and again, I'm trying to take politics out of the equation, does any right minded individual in any part of the world look at Joe Biden and say, yeah, that's leadership. I'm not going to mess with America? Or do they see a stumbling old man who literally greets dead congresswomen at the White House? Watch the video as he's saying, where's my friend? She's dead. She died in a car crash 2 months ago, and you're looking for her now? I mean, this is the dangerous situation we're in. President Trump, one of the reasons he's hated so much by the left is he's a man's man. He is the quintessential alpha male. And when I was in the White House, I purloined a phrase from the Marine Corps. I said, America's back, and no better friend, no worse enemy. I know when we were in the White House, the dictators were afraid of us. So, there's a state dinner at Mar-a-Lago with Xi Jinping, and you can see the footage. It's hilarious, and as Xi Jinping's about to tuck into his, chocolate cake at Mar-a-Lago, Donald leans over and through the interpreter says, I just thought I should tell you I've dropped 52 cruise missiles on Assad's airbase in Syria because he was about to use chemical weapons on women and children. Now, that bravura is a message not just for him, but for all tin pot dictators that, I'm not an interventionist, but if you do something bad, I will come down on you like the hammers of hell. And you look at the border, my Lord, Rebecca, we talk to Tom Homan, talk to Mark Morgan. These are the people who secured the border for us. They're on my show regularly. We have 6,000 illegal immigrants crossing into America daily with the acquiescence of the Department of Homeland Security. I did a little bit of that. You talked about the drug epidemic. For my Newsmax show, I did a little back of the envelope math. How many people have died in uniform representing the U.S. Since the end of World War II? So if you add Korea, Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iraq, you add all of those combat fatalities together, and you've got 103,000 men and women in uniform since 1945. If you go to the CDC, it's hard to find because they've hidden it. But if you dig deep on the CDC's website, the official federal statistics for the amount of people killed by fentanyl and hard drugs in the last 12 months in America is 110,000 people murdered. So 70 years of war, less casualties than 12 months of open border under Biden.
Yeah.
I don't care what your politics are. That's wrong.
It is wrong, and it's something everybody's got to know about. We've got to really understand the facts, and this is why it's so important that we do this show and that we have you on to share this news and information. It might sound depressing, but I tell you, I believe in America. I believe in the American spirit. I think more and more people do recognize that if we don't make changes quickly to leadership, we will lose America altogether. Dr. Gorka, thank you so much for being with me. It's always a great joy to have you here, and I look forward to having you back with me again soon.
Anytime. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Rebecca. God bless.
There's a concerted effort to intimidate and censor conservative thinkers. The very freedoms secured by our Constitution are being threatened by the most liberal progressives America has ever seen. They're trying to indoctrinate and corrupt our children in schools. They've defied the authority of the Supreme Court. They've weakened our economy with lockdowns and mandates. They've failed to keep our borders secure. They've weakened America's position on the global stage. It seems like everything they do is to the detriment of our great nation. But there are plenty of patriots with the courage to stand up to the left, and there's an easy way for you to stand with them. Join AMAC. AMAC is the conservative membership organization that's helping to make America great again. AMAC is a voice for conservatives that cannot be ignored. Stand with over 2 million America-loving patriots by joining AMAC today.